Hello, everyone. This is another Black Conservative. I'm Ryan Bowling. Thank you all for joining me. In my book review today, I want to talk about a book that is an eye-opener and has been an eye-opener for me. And that is Thomas Sowell's Black Rednecks and White Liberals. Now, for those of you who don't know who Thomas Sowell is, Thomas Sowell is a trained economist, but he's also delved into the area of history and social theory. So this man is brilliant. I mean, I think I have, how many of his books I have? 20 so far, 22, 23 so far. I think he's written over 30 something books, and I'm counting, his books are awesome. I mean, the ones that I have read so far are awesome. This man is brilliant. He's considered to be one of the top intellectuals in America at this time. And I think one source said that he's one of the top intellectuals for the last 100 years in America. So it's an honor to be able to just talk about any type of books or any type of quotes that he may have initiated or wrote. Okay. So I want to talk about Black Rednecks and White Liberals. This was written back in 2005. And I purchased this book, I'd say maybe about 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago. And this was when I started first getting into Thomas Sowell. And I don't remember how that exactly happened. I don't remember what led me into getting into him. I know that when I officially became a conservative in 2016, I started purchasing books and watching YouTube channels that dealt with politics from a conservative point of view. And I was like, wow, I didn't know this and I didn't know that. And it was just really an eye opener, this whole conservative thing. I was like, man, I didn't know this, man. All this time I've been voting for the Democrats and this is what the Democrats really represented. And man, So I don't know exactly how Thomas Sowell even came into my lexicon of books and public speakers. I didn't know how they came about, but I will say this, that this book, I think this is one of the first books that I purchased from him, and it's an eye-opener. Now, two things I wanted to mention about this book that I want to bring out that to whet your appetite if you don't have this book. Two sections that I wanted to mention that I think would be extremely illuminating for those who wish to buy any of Thomas Sowell's material. The first section that I wanted to, and I'm going to summarize this, is the section where he talks about how that African Americans of today derive their negative pathological ways and mindsets from Southern whites back in the Deep South. And that these Southern whites from the Deep South migrated from a section of Great Britain prior to the beginning of the slave trade. They migrated from a section of Great Britain and basically owned basically a Deep South. Okay. And that these whites, I don't want to give away too much detail, but that these Southern whites, many of the characteristics and traits that they had were the same characteristics and traits that African Americans have today. In other words, very, very loose sexual attitudes, bad language, a de-emphasis of education, loud and brash, an aversion from work. All these pathological ways, these groups of whites that migrated from Great Britain, according to Thomas Sowell's argument, and filled the Deep South at the time, many of these negative ways, Thomas Sowell argues, blacks or African Americans of today derive their attitude from them. Now, I don't want to give away too much of it, but although that may sound like a stretch to a lot of people, I strongly advise you purchase the book. Purchase the book, or you can literally type in YouTube. You can type this in on YouTube, and you can hear what do they call it? The audio of it is, someone actually literally reads it, and you can actually hear it. I think that, but I don't know if they read all of it though. But I know you can hear it on audio. You can hear it on audio. But if you can't buy it, but I strongly advise you buy it, because that way you have a hard copy of it. If something happens to the internet, okay, then you have a hard copy of it, because 9 times out of 10, the thought police is not going to come in your home and take all your books from you. We haven't gotten to that point yet, so it's best to get a hard copy of this type of stuff. But he talks about this, so it's a very compelling argument, and it's something worth really considering and worth thinking about, because it's like, man, why are blacks the way they are? I mean, not all blacks, clearly. So anyone that's watching this video, please don't. You talking about black people? That's not what I'm talking about. Let me just reiterate this. What Thomas Sowell is talking about is a certain section of black people, what we would call ghetto black people today. Let's be realistic. Anyone that's black that's watching this video, you know what I'm talking about. You know I'm talking about the ghetto people. And most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, ghetto-minded blacks have all these negative traits. You know that. I know it because I lived it. I was surrounded by it. Okay? So, that being the case, he makes a strong argument about that. So that's one of the reasons why I recommend this book. The other reason is there's a section in it where he deals with the real history of slavery. He deals with the section called The Real History of Slavery. And what that section basically highlights isn't that slavery didn't exist in America. That's not what his argument is here in the section on Real History of Slavery. What he argues about in the section of the real history of slavery in this particular section is how that Americans, in particular black Americans in particular, have been so inundated with this idea that America is the one that American slavery is the only form of slavery that ever existed in the world. And what Thomas Sowell argues in that particular section on the real history of slavery is the fact that slavery has been in existence by just about every community and every society and every nation for thousands of years before there was even an America was even thought about. So if America, so how is it that America originated? Because you got people that literally say slavery originated with America. How stupid is that? Even to even say something like that, let you know how dumbed down people have been in the educational system. Anybody with any kind of sense would know, wait a minute, hold it. America isn't where history started. Jesus Christ, man. Think about it. The slave trade started in the 15th century, right? Most people that's been inundated with this whole idea of America creating slavery understand for the most part that the slave trade, the transatlantic slave trade, started in the 15th century. So if it started in the 15th century, isn't there a history before the 15th century? And if there's a history before this 15th century, which anyone with any kind of cognitive abilities would know, then it would basically incite you to at least look back and see, okay, maybe there's a history before the 15th century. Let me look back and see if anything else is going on. Just that alone lets you know that there was a history that existed before the 15th century transatlantic slave trade. I'm not going to give away too much, but except to say that there was other slave trades that existed before the transatlantic slave trade. And his argument in this book is that the real history of slavery has been omitted from our textbooks, or rather omitted from the historical narrative that's being spun around black people today. See, knowledge is power. And a lot of times when you don't know certain things, you act accordingly. When you know certain things, you act accordingly. And this book is very enlightening. So for any other reason that to buy this book based on those two reasons alone. It's well researched. Look at all these notes. I think it's like the book is like 292 pages, right? It's not really, technically speaking, it's about 292 pages of information. But the notes, look at all these notes, man. All these are notes. And that goes from 293 to, wow. 293 to 372. So from 293 to 372, that's how many notes is in here. He does his research. So I highly recommend Black Rednecks and White Liberals. I think it's an eye opener. It will help educate you and as far as I'm concerned, open your eyes to the matrix that we've been living in all these many years. So once again, in summing this up, I highly recommend Thomas Sowell's Black Rednecks and White Liberals. I hope you all have gotten something out of this review. Leave your comments in the comment section below if you so like. Press the like button, share, and subscribe to this channel. God bless you all, and see you again.